Hi friends, it's Caitlin and today is day 8 of my October Eve series. I cannot believe we are already into week 2. Today I wanted to share with you my first time using this new stamp set from Hello Bluebird's newest release. This is the Tree Neighbors set and I wanted to make a slimline first so that we could use up that whole tree all at once. I stamped all of the main images with the Misti and then I switched to an acrylic block for the grass and leaves because there were going to be so many. I borrowed a few extra leaves from the Frightful Little Bit set just to give myself a little more variety. I'm going to apologize now for my voice. I think I sound worse than the last 2 days, but I promise I'm feeling better, so hopefully this won't keep up for too long. I was so excited to color up these little critters, but I wanted to get the tree out of the way first. I really relied on the artist's drawn lines to direct my shading, and I worked from the darkest to the lightest shades just like I usually do. I also added in extra shading under each of the tree holes because I wanted to tuck a critter into each and so there would be extra shadows where they were sitting. I did 2 full layers of coloring on the tree because it was such a large space and that lightest E marker kind of washed away some of the contrast, which I really wanted to add back in. When I filled in each of the holes, I went across the opening horizontally and then vertically. Layering in this crosshatch kind of way really helps to make sure that the paper is fully saturated and that you get full coverage with your ink. There'll be no streaks and no gaps this way. All of the colors used in each section of this card, as well as all of the other supplies I used today, will be listed in the description box below for you. I decided to keep all of my critters neutral or warm for this card so that everything had that same warm fall color story. I used the E40 family for both of the bunnies and their shading is very simple. I imagined for all of my critters that they would be more shaded on the back of their heads and bodies because I'll be placing them onto those holes in the trees so their backs would be in the shadows. The squirrels in this part of the east coast of the United States are usually gray, so I went with the W markers and kept it pretty light to keep in line with the bunnies. I have seen other people make red squirrels and I think that they're so adorable too, but I stuck with what I know. For my fox, I broke out my favorite orange combination, which I mostly use for pumpkins, but I think that it also works beautifully for foxes, and especially with the background I'll be doing later, I love that he's this really pretty autumnal orange. We're also just going to pretend like it's okay that this fox is leaning up at this tree where all of the bunnies and squirrels are hiding and that they're actually happy to see him and not trying to hide like prey. It was a little bit of a bend for me when I was making this, but the images are so cute that I think I can try to overlook it. But also same with the owl on the branch. I'm just saying. For the leaves, I knew I wanted to tuck them in around each critter and add them to the ground and the air, so I really wanted to make a wide variety of colors for myself. I decided to go with a red combo, a dark orange, a light orange, and a greenish yellow, and I made sure that the individual red leaves that I colored in matched the same shape as the leaves on the tree just for continuity. The rest I just picked as I went along. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with this sentiment, but then I decided that if the fox was the one saying it, maybe it made sense if the colors matched the colors of the fox. And so I didn't really do a wood grain, but I kind of went in with that same streaky feel and just added in those same orange shades to the bubble, and then went in with my white gel pen marker like usual to add all of my eye dots and some highlights to that sentiment. Now this next part is the only part I didn't speed up. I just learned this tip a couple months ago and it changed my life. When you're clipping your dies apart, don't just clip them and let the shards go flying. All you have to do is gently squeeze the little tab near the die and twist the clippers. They pop right off and you can toss them. You're never gonna step on a piece of metal shard again, and it's so nice. Okay, so I knew I wanted to ink blend the background for this slimline, and so I pulled out my trusty color chart to pick a nice warm fall color blend for the sky and some olivey colors for the grass. I also taped down my Lawnfawn grassy hillside stencil from the back of the panel after checking with where I thought I wanted my tree to go to make sure that I had room for everything as I was lining it up. I'm blending on my colors today with the Simon Says Stamp blending brushes, and the more I use these, the more I absolutely love them. I really thought they would only be good for giving a soft wash of color compared to the blending foams, but these really can layer up so quickly and give you that nice pop of color while still blending between the colors beautifully. This is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. I just seriously love these brushes. So I worked my way up from yellow to orange and then red, and originally I'd only grabbed the crackling campfire as my darkest, but I needed one more color for the top, and so I added in aged mahogany, and I'm so glad that I did. I really think it brings the whole thing together. I also went in with some clean water and just tapped on some drops with a tube from the spray nozzle and then blotted it away with paper towels. I did that a couple times until I had as much texture as I wanted. I moved my tape further up the back of the panel and shifted my stencil up to mask off the sky. These Lawnfawn stencils are amazing because you get the positive and the negative parts all in once. It's like a one and done. I went in with the lighter shade of green at the top and then added the darker shade from the bottom. While I was blending, I realized that there was an imperfection in the paper or a scratch or something, and so there was a line being created with my ink. But I was so invested with how the top sky part had turned out that I really didn't want to start over. I think the recipient will be able to overlook it because everything else on the card is so cute. Who cares about a little line at the bottom, right? I used liquid glue to adhere all of my items today, including this giant tree, so that I would have time to wiggle it around to make sure that the placement was where I wanted it. I needed to make sure there was a little bit of tree overhanging on the side and the top, so that way when I trimmed it, I'd get a nice clean line. I also tucked in the little grass spots around the tree before the glue had finished drying, but once I started placing down my fox, I realized that I needed to shift one of those over or else it would be completely covered. So I glued him down and then went back in and reattached that grass further over to the other side. The dies for the bunnies and the squirrels create little lines between their arms so that if you were using this with the holes cut out of the tree instead of just colored in, you could tuck the paper under their arms to make it look like they're hanging over. Now because I didn't do that, I just folded those tabs back and trimmed them away so that I get kind of that same effect even though they're on top of the paper. I played around with my layout a little bit, making sure that where the critters were looking made sense for which tree hole they were in, and I knew obviously that my owl I wanted on that top branch before I started. Then I went in with all of my little leaves and just started tucking them around so that it kind of looks like each animal is making their own little nest for the winter. I added a couple little leaf piles to the ground and put a few floating through the air, and then I adhered everything down with that liquid glue before going in with foam tape over the back of my whole panel to pop it up onto this printed wood grain paper that I had gotten a long time ago from Hobby Lobby. I removed the liner from the foam tape and popped it onto the back panel, and then this card is done. I really love how warm and cozy this card feels, and I'm so in love with this stamp set. I can't wait to change it up and use it for a winter card next. If you have a favorite stamp set from Hello Bluebird, please leave me a comment below. I'd love to know what you love. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you haven't subscribed yet, please click that button and join the family. I hope you have an amazing day and happy crafting.